Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Mike Hunt, founder of Dream Lab program, a program helping mid-career professionals test and launch purpose-driven businesses without abandoning the security they have built. So we learned about all this, about his proven framework for testing your business idea through small structured experiments alongside your career, replacing assumptions with data, and building confidence without risking everything you have built. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Mike. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how one can test their business idea without quitting their job. So we'll talk about all this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
So you're in India, I'm in Australia. So that's where I'm bred and born, spent some time in the States and Canada. But yeah, I'm an Australian. I was born up here. I actually spent 25 years in the corporate world, managing teams and technology. And it was really exciting in the early days. And what I found over time, it started to become a bit hard, a little bit of burnout. At the same time, my father was actually a local chemist, and he ended up retiring, and his social life was his chemist, and everything he did was there. So at home, he just relaxed, and when he retired, he actually died about 5 years after that, because just from loneliness and boredom. So it coincided with my sort of burnout in the corporate world, and I left and to really for myself, to follow my dreams, to follow my passion, to help others do the same.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Mike, I want to understand in your words, what is it that you want to tell those people who are, who want to start doing business, want to start with their idea, but are not able to? What is it that you are doing? What is it that you are wanting to say to the world?
Well, what happens is we have this passion, we have this desire, burning inside us, and we suppress it because we're in this safe life. We think we have to work, we have our career, and we do that. And what I always say is at least at a minimum, spend time to explore this thing and bring it out into the open, bring it out into the light, and start to think of how would you like to make a difference? How would you like to help others? Add to your community, make the world a better place. And I really think it's important that we think about that from not a I leap straight away and I leave whatever I'm doing straight away to doing it, but just explore it, have a bit of fun with it, and think about what that may look like in your life.
Absolutely, Mike. So, how do you start a business and expect to excel in it when you start it with it being plan B and even plan C? How do you go with that mindset and win that battle?
Well, that's a great question, AJ, because it's really what Dream Labs is all about. Because there's this mindset of people think it's burn the bridges, just jump straight into it, go hard or go home type mentality. And I don't believe that's the way. From what I've seen is people do better if it's plan B, plan C. But rather than thinking of plan A or B or C, think of it as you have your work, you have your thing that you're doing. Now, you might like it, you might not like it, but that's your job. That's what's paying the bills. That's what's paying for your food on the table. The plan B, plan C, I don't like to think of it that way necessarily, because it could be plan A, but you're still in your job. So if you've got this passion, if you want to do something, I believe you can start doing it a little bit on the side and build it up over time. And you actually find that you can use your contacts, your resources from your main job in your life and really start to work on it over time. So instead of thinking of it as plan B or plan C, maybe think of it as plan, it'll happen eventually idea rather than it's a different plan.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mike. So, how do one get started? Means, first, should they evaluate first whether entrepreneurship is for them at all? Because having a good idea does not mean you have an entrepreneurial mindset at all. Should they do that first and then think about entrepreneur? Because every time you have a, have some sort of a scuffle with your boss, your superior, every time you will think, I will quit this job, I will start something of my own. And that is not the right way to think about entrepreneurship. People think I will be my own boss. So that is why I asked this question. Even before testing anything, you should know whether you want to really test those waters.
It's a great question, AJ. And this is really at the heart of what I love doing, because rather than thinking of it as I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to do that and make the commitment, what I encourage people to do is you can actually explore and test your idea, test your dream on a let's call it a trial basis. You get a hypothesis like we do in a lab, right? That's why we call it the dream lab. You get a hypothesis. Maybe I want to help people with their health. Maybe I want to reduce plastics in the world. Maybe I want to make a difference by whatever you do, helping people, therapy, or whatever you do. Then rather than thinking it's all or nothing, rather than thinking it is, I'd like to test this idea, even if it's just one person you help, even if it takes you 6 months. Hopefully it won't take that long. But if it takes 6 months to find someone who you can help, then once you help them, and all of a sudden they say, oh, that was really beneficial, and you can see the result, then you start to build it up. So it's not really a, jump over and do it thing. It's a more of a, you can actually test it as you go.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how do you want them to get started? How do you give us some example from Dream Lab? When do you come into the picture, and how does it change the game for those people who want to change their life with entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's great. And for your listeners, what I would suggest, what I always suggest is, rather than what everyone happens, from my experience, and I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and I see the same pattern. What happens is people start thinking about what they're passionate about, what they really want to do, and they're comparing it against the other thing, what they're doing, their safe job, their safe life. And they're always tossing up which one I should do. What I suggest is go with their dream, right? But rather than, the most important thing that they can do is you never, ever, ever plan before you start. The idea is to explore what would happen, right? Remember this dream, this passion that you love to do, right? You might be doing it for your whole life. This is your life's work. This is your mission. This is your purpose. You're not going to work it out in the first week or month or even year. So what I would suggest to people who are listening is to think about their dream more, not from a how will I do it perspective, not all the logistics perspective, but leave all that stuff to later, because it's more important to explore how you would feel if you were doing that. How would you feel if you were living your dream? Who would you help? How would that make you feel? How would that be in your world? What sort of life would you be living? And I think that that's a lot more important. So number one is really forget the planning, forget the logistics, forget everything else, and just really focus on what it means to live your dream.
Absolutely. Does this evaluation or taking that first step towards testing your idea, does it differ for men and women, or is it almost the same, Mike?
Another great question, AJ. It doesn't. The process doesn't change. I do work with men and women, but I focus more on women, and I'll tell you why. And this may or may not resonate with people. Is that women have this innate ability or need to connect with others, to connect with community, and to make a positive difference, to give back. And guys, and this is not absolutely nothing against men, but men tend to focus more on the money aspect, and it's a good thing just to to think of where you're at, because if you're focusing on the money aspect, it's one way of doing it. If you're focusing more on the giving back, and I find women are more like that. They tend to want to give back. They're more focused on community. Not always. It's a very general comment, I know, but I think that's the real difference. Is I like working with women more. I work with blokes as well, but I think they've got that built-in. It's something in their genes, in their code, that they're more towards making a positive difference to make a purpose-driven business.
Absolutely, Mike. Now, let's come to fear. Fear is there because you are in a safe place. Now, the fear of the unknown and the fear of the lion and the tiger and all those chunks are different. But the fear of, entrepreneurship, the success as well as failures, that's a different kind of fear. How do you banish that fear until you fully are into that job? The fear, how do you deal with this fear? What is this fear about that you generally see in would be your potential entrepreneurs?
So it's so true, because fear, at the end of the day, fear is what's stopping most of us follow our dreams. Fear is what stops us, really. And the way I think of fear, and the way exactly why I built Dream Lab, not just Dream, it's a laboratory, because fear is we can solve fear. Because what happens is when we, as I said before, what happens is when we start thinking of following our dreams, when we start thinking about following our passion and helping others and making the world a better place, it becomes this really big thing. And it's easy to think of all the things we need to do, everything we need to change, everything we need to do to make our dreams come true. And what happens is then we become fearful. We think, what happens if people don't like it? What happens if it doesn't work? How am I going to make money? And all the fears that come with that. And I think it's really important that we highlight and talk about the fears. So I'm glad you spoke about that. The way we overcome our fears is this testing philosophy. We have a mindset, we have an idea of how we're going to help others, what we're going to do, whether we're in health coaching, whether we're going to reduce plastics or whatever the case may be. We have this dream of what we think we can do. And what a lot of people do is they sit on that and it lays dormant, because every time they think about fear. So really, what we like to do in Dream Lab is we just test the idea, just test it on a few people, to start doing it, to experiment with it. And then what happens is the fear starts to resolve, because they test it, they try it out, they start to realize, oh, actually, people actually benefit from what I'm doing. And people are coming along and say, hey, that was great, I really like that, I'll refer you to friends, etc., etc. And then that's when the fear subsides.
Absolutely. So how do you test actually in the Dream Lab, and how do you know this data is concrete enough to move forward? Because testing in real life will be a bit different, because there you have to test it in the outside world, whereas you are still doing a full-time job most probably, and you may also have the fear that your existing company may know about it, and you may be breaking some norms there. Already this whole concept of in the IT industry about moonlighting and all those things are still, being debated. So help us understand, means how do you also get over that fear that you are doing breaking some norm, and even that fear is there because you may lose your job also.
I really love what you've brought up, AJ, because this is an important point. Because what happens is we fear about chasing it. Then what we do is we hide it in the shadows. We don't bring it out into the light. What happens, and I've been a boss, I've managed teams for 25 years, as I said at the beginning, or we said at the beginning. What happens is bosses generally actually, if they're a good boss, they actually want to support their staff. They want to support what they're doing. So and I know it can be a little bit tricky depending on how close to what you're doing is to your daytime job. But often what I see is people are wanting to do something that's a little bit outside of their current role. So rather than hiding it, rather than not telling anybody, even if you are closely, it could be a competition thing. If people actually sit down and talk to their boss and explain to them, this is what I'm trying to achieve, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm passionate about, the boss feels the passion. And as long as they can explain that what they're doing is something that they do on the side, this is plan B or whatever you want to call it, I just love doing this on the weekends, after hours. Of course, I'm still committed to the job. You actually find that bosses and clients and your network and your contact within your current role, if you play it right, and it's all depends on the situation, you may find that there's actually people who will support you in your journey. So it actually, rather than thinking of it as I'll get sacked, this is going to be bad for my career, you can actually think of it as positive. And I'll give you a very quick example. You might have something that you could offer, even if it's related to your current job, and you could say, this is what I'm doing on the side. Can I do it with our current clients? And you may have an option to integrate it into your current work. So it's a tricky situation, I know, but often, and probably more often than not, you can incorporate it into your day-to-day job more than you can, better than if you try to hide it.
Absolutely, absolutely. How does this test actually work on the ground? You talk about evidence, data. How do you know this has passed the test and this can go a bit, in a wider scheme of things?
Well, from my experience, what I've found is once people are encouraged to test this thing, once they want to give it a go and try it, yes, there's data and you can post and you can get analytics and all the rest of it, which is fantastic. But at the end of the day, from a mindset perspective, from what people who are making the change are doing, it's they're talking to another person doing something that they've never done before. They're following their dream. They're helping another person with their specific skill set, whatever they're into. And they see themselves. They actually sit down with someone who says, wow, that was really great. And so you get the data firsthand because you're actually testing it in real life. You're actually sitting down with someone, maybe on the weekend, maybe after hours, maybe on a video call or in person, but you're actually trying this thing. And once they do it a few times, we find that people really, it's very exponential. So they build their confidence very, very quickly.
Absolutely. Mike, many a times people think we will do something which is offline, and many a times people think we'll do something online. Both are two different things. Does this whole process work only for online or only for offline, or does it work for both type of businesses? Because the approach is totally different. In the offline business, in the real world business, you have to be visible in your own way.
Yeah, and a great question, AJ. And I think it really comes down to what you're offering. So on my website, I have a quiz that sort of helps people understand whether they're going to be online or offline, and it is an important distinction. I would encourage anyone who's in their community, anyone who is going to be doing something face-to-face, that sort of work, really explore the networking opportunities they have locally, the groups, the business networking, the Chamber of Commerce. It's invaluable to mix with other business owners. And I think this really face-to-face work is absolutely essential for anyone who really wants to be face-to-face in person, because really that means, it's within your local community. If you're trying to help people around the world, and like what you're doing, AJ, which is fantastic, you're podcasting and you're spreading it to the world. Well, that's a online situation, what you're doing. So you're helping so many people, but you can't really do it in person because you might have in-person stuff locally, but you're really trying to take it to the world. So it's a really different scenario, AJ, with what you're doing, of being online. So it's good to know where you're playing, where your space is. Sometimes you can do both, but really it is a very important thing to decide right at the beginning whether you're going to be online or you're going to be in person in your community. And obviously, even if you're online, you can still have your community around you in person.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Mike. Now, one more thing I want to understand is about partners. Many people want to be solo. Many people want to have business partners. Many people want, because nowadays, husband and wife, the spouse, both are business partners. How or when is the right time to think about that? Should it be from the very beginning? Should it be after the testing of ideas? What is your best advice here to look at this part of your business or potential business venture?
That's a great one, AJ, because I believe that you should always collaborate. You can work solo, absolutely, and that's fine. But the more you collaborate with others, even what we're doing here is a little bit of a collaboration, only for a short period of time.
Right.
We're sharing ideas, we're talking, we're collaborating. And I think rather than thinking about whether I need a business partner or I'm going solo, we can start thinking about who am I collaborating with, because you don't have to be in business with them. You don't have to have any financial ties, but you can have people who are in your community, either online or in person, who we support each other. We do the thing and we talk. You may meet up with them each week or each month, whatever you do. And we can really, I believe, as humans, we've evolved to be this community creature. We've evolved to want to share. We've evolved to want to help each other. And I really think that I think anyone who's doing it solo, in my personal opinion, definitely find collaborators. Now, as you build those collaborations, as you build and go down the track, whether you end up going financially into a partnership with someone, that's one thing. Whether it's your partner, it's the same thing. If it's someone you're married to, rather than thinking you're a partner, you can think of it as a collaboration. And whether you go into business together down the track, that's something you can talk about down the track. But I think really to think of it at the beginning as collaborators, where you help each other, is definitely the go.
Absolutely. My last question to you, Mike, is to understand when is the time to actually take that leap? Now that you have the data, that you have the test and everything, when is it? Because the fear will still be there. Because the success or non-success will still be there. Maybe by that time it is bringing in you already some revenues. But still that evaluation has to be done. When is the time to take that final leap of faith, but with data in your hand?
Yeah, and that's great, because I'm a systems guy. I came from a technology basis, project management, operations, And I actually believe that it's not a necessarily, I know there is a point where you change, but we have so much more flexibility in our day jobs than people realize. So rather than thinking about it, when am I going to leave my job to finally go to my passion? If you're testing, if you're building up your job on the side, you will naturally progress, because what happens is you start getting busier and busier. And as you get busier, you get the confidence to say to your boss, look, I can't actually work 5 days. I need to work 4 days or 3 days a week. And so I think there's a real power in when you've got something building on the side, you've got a lot more leverage in your day job. So what happens is the day job, as you don't need it as much, shall we say, then you can actually negotiate very strongly. And if your boss really needs you, they'll put you down to 3 days, 2 days a week, or whatever the case may be. And if not, you can go as a contractor. You can work somewhere else. So I think this idea of having to leave that to go to that is a bit not old school. It's a bit, it's a fear. It's something that people think that they have to do, but you'll find that actually you've got a lot more flexibility as you build up your business, because you're making almost half your wage out of your business that's on the side. You can start to really drop off your main job, and you find a way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great practical advice there, Mike. Indeed, in fact, it creates a lot of flexibility for you and better negotiating situation for you if you are able to do it
Absolutely.
within your existing job. There is so much to learn about all this from you, Mike, and I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of would-be entrepreneurs would want to connect with you, learn more about you, the way you do things at Dream Lab, perhaps be your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Look, I'm on all the socials, on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, but I think the best is going to my website, which is yourdreamlab.org, yourdreamlab.org. And I actually suggest people do the quiz, because the quiz, coming back to what you said before, whether you're going to be online, offline, how are you going to approach this business? The quiz gets you to start to think about how that might be. Are you someone who wants to do everything? You're a weaver, getting everything together, whether you want to be travel and be online, or if you be an anchor in your community. So I really think the quiz is a great way to start. And I encourage anyone I have a free quick call, 15-minute call with people if they want to talk. And I really love doing that, because I love talking to people who want to follow their dreams. And I love, exploring these ideas with them one-on-one.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a wonderful experience, and I really appreciate what you're doing.